Welcome to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast, a relaxing and informative show where we explore anxiety, panic, and PTSD, sharing how you can overcome them for life.
Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Fastic. We've all done intermittent fasting before, and it's really not intimidating. It's like going out to dinner and waking up late the next morning. Before you have your breakfast, you have fasted. Intermittent fasting is done the same way, only you do it consciously. What I really love about using the Fastic app is the timer in the app tracks your eating and fasting windows so that you don't need to keep an eye on the clock. It'll let you know what's going on in your body during the fasting hours and tell you when you're ready to eat. More support during your eating window is available too. Fastic has tons of recipes and nutritional guidance in their Fastic Academy, and it's all verified by experts. Go to fastic.com or click on the link in the show notes. That's the best way to do it. To download the app and use code ACP to get $50 off a 1 year of Fastic Plus. That's fastic.com, or click the link in the show notes to download the Fastic app and get $50 off your first year with promo code ACP. In today's episode, I wanted to get back into talking about stress, fatigue, and your adrenals. We talked in the last episode about how the body actually goes through a little bit of a beating when we are stressed enough to have those stress hormones raging through our body. And some of us, this is acute, it happens, it comes, it goes, and it's done and over with. For other people, this is chronic. And this is where there can begin to be some other things going on in your body. So it's important to understand that the fact that you are tired or that you are feeling not well is probably partially due to some of these stress hormones that we have going on in the body. So I wanted to talk a little bit about when the body is exposed to stress and how that is all working. So we actually have our hypothalamus, our pituitary, and adrenal axis. This is the HPA axis that is activated, and a cascade of these hormones and changes occur to eventually cause the release of the cortisol, the stress hormone. And now, of course, here we talk about it in very simple terms because I am not going to be talking about the physiology of all this. You don't need to know all that, except to know that this is what's happening. And so the cortisol, the stress hormone cortisol, is released from the adrenal glands. Now, normally, when a stressor goes away, the negative feedback cycles serve to turn off this HPA axis, and it reduces the release of the cortisol. This is what we talk about when we say like 90 seconds as a mammal. After you can register safety, there is this negative feedback cycle that comes in, and it turns off the HPA axis, reducing the release of the cortisol. But their problem begins when we are constantly activating our HPA axis. And people with anxiety, panic, and I was there too, it is constantly coming and going, like having to deal with so much more stress than the body might be wanting to be dealing with or is built to be dealing with. When we're exposed to chronic stressors over long periods of time, and this will be different for each individual, some people can handle large amounts of all kinds of stress and other people not so much. But our adrenals pump out more and more cortisol as we become more and more resistant to its effects. So it's just like other hormones in our body. We want to stay sensitive to our cortisol, But when we are always pumping it out, the body it closes its ears to it, like, I don't hear it. And so the body pumps out more, which is not what we want, because we're still up against those effects that the cortisol causes to our body. We become resistant to the actual hearing of the cortisol. The negative feedback cycles that normally keep things in check get turned off, and our health suffers as a result. This is why you can feel like you are always on those stress hormones, because you very well might be. Eventually, the HPA axis can't keep up with the demand for cortisol, and cortisol levels can then become low. The dysregulation of the HPA axis is what we refer to as the adrenal fatigue syndrome. Like, it's people call it adrenal fatigue, but it is a syndrome. It's not a disease. It is a collection of symptoms. And so what are those symptoms? In case you are wondering for yourself, it could be a decreased ability to handle stress. Yes, this happens. That's why we seem more and more and more sensitized, right? Waking up exhausted, having brain fog or decreased cognitive ability. We all know this feeling. Anybody listening to this can probably relate to these. Dizziness when standing from sitting or lying down, a low sex drive, increased severity in allergic responses, low blood pressure, low blood sugar, and weakness. These are some of the very common symptoms. And so, of course, I have some things for you to be able to work on to prevent and heal from this type of syndrome. But first, I want to thank today's sponsors. We have Ned with us today. In a perfect world, what would you like to get done every day? You probably have a list. Starting your day with De-Stress Blend is the first step in making healthy decisions throughout the day. Create a better habit loop. Ned is USDA certified organic, and this is not the case with all of the other products that are out there with CBD. So really be sure that you are using the Ned products. Their hemp oil is extracted from hemp plants that are organic and grown by independent farmers. These products are science-backed, nature-based solutions that offer an alternative to prescription and over-the-counter drugs. If you'd like to give Ned a try, and the De-Stress Blend in particular, Anxiety Coaches podcast listeners get 15% off Ned products with code ACP. Visit helloned.com/ACP to get access. That's HELLONED.com/ACP to get 15% off. Thank you, Ned, for sponsoring the show and offering our listeners a natural remedy for some of life's most common health issues. And Calm is with us. Let's use this ad break with Calm for a real break in your day. A calm break. Take a moment to survey your thoughts right now. What are you holding on to? Let go of your to-do list for a second and your pending projects, and just focus on your breath. We all need a few moments in the day where we are at one with ourselves, and Calm can really help. Clear your head with guided daily meditations, improve your focus with Calm's curated music tracks, and drift off to dreamland with Calm's imaginative sleep stories for children and adults. Sleep more, stress less, live better with Calm. For listeners of the show, Calm is offering a special limited time promotion of 40% off a Calm premium subscription at calm.com/ACP. Go to calm.com/ACP for 40% off unlimited access to Calm's entire library. That's calm.com/ACP. Okay, so we took a look at the collection of symptoms, and I gave you a list of things that are just some of the more common symptoms of having an exhausted adrenal. And, there's all kinds of different, like I said, it's not really a disease, but this is what happens and this is what is felt. And so how do we get there as far as taking care of ourselves? And one of the ways that we got into the problem, actually, is we got there by a lack of sleep. If you wake up exhausted and you're not sleeping well the night before, this has a lot of consequences, including how your mood is going to be and your cognition, as well as an increased risk of metabolic problems. Sleep deprivation activates the stress response and causes an increase in cortisol levels, priming you for adrenal fatigue, for feeling these symptoms. Now, of course, like I said earlier, it isn't the same for everyone. Some people, actually a lot of people, are able to sleep less. They've either taught themselves how to do it or they came in naturally not needing as much sleep as other people. So this is, again, if you are not sleeping well, this doesn't mean that you are having this. It just means that sleep is one of the places that we get exhausted. Lack of sleep is one of the ways that we get there. So another thing that you can do is be eating foods that are highly refined. Nothing wrong with eating carbohydrates. The body loves carbohydrates and does fine burning them. What we don't do well with and what is not good for our entire system are refined carbohydrates. So this is most of your packaged foods. So just be careful that you are getting enough real food in your diet, that you are eating fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, adding whatever else that you like in there, but making sure that you have a nice, good base of whole foods, meaning closer to their natural state as you can. So often, after you've had a long day, maybe you've eaten some junk in the morning, you didn't sleep well, let's start there. You didn't sleep well, you ate some junk for breakfast, you ate some junk for lunch. By the time you get home, all you want to do is lay on the couch, right? You feel tired, but you have to make dinner. And so you sit down while you eat and you watch some TV, and that's it, right? That's all that gets in there. We're glued to a screen again, whether it's the phone or the computer or the television. And then as we lay in bed at night, we can't go to sleep. Again, so you see how this cycle is going. So we've caused ourselves a number of issues in here, things that can be corrected by the way that we live our lives. We can make sure that we are doing what we can. So why don't we do that? Why don't we lay those out right now? Preventing ourselves from overusing our stress hormones. And part of that is just keeping ourselves calm, right? And you guys are all working on that. Everybody who's listening to this is working on moving their nervous system back to its natural state where it can get worked up. We can let those stress hormones out, let them do the work they need to do, and then we go right back again. Like this cycle is supposed to happen, that negative feedback loop that says, okay, turn that off now. And we turn it all off and we're back to normal. And we can get there even if you're stuck in a chronic loop of stress and your adrenaline is constantly running, your cortisol is constantly running, you can break it. And many of our shows, we talk about those places that we can actually interrupt that cycle. But today we're going to talk about the prevention and the healing from this adrenal kind of burnout or fatigue, whatever you would like to term it as. Again, it's not a disease. It's a collection of symptoms. You want to get your sleep. So address your sleep issues. Maybe that means you need more. Maybe it means you need to get in bed earlier. It's very important to get into bed and try to be asleep by 10 p.m. This is extremely valuable, especially if you are getting less sleep. Those 2 hours between 10 p.m. and midnight actually count for more. And that has to do with our circadian rhythms. It has to do with the sun and the darkness. So get to bed by 10. If you cut your sleep short on a regular basis, at least make sure you get to bed by 10. That will really be helpful to you. And I would love to hear, if you keep track of this and you try it, how it has worked for you. Because just like the caffeine, a lot of people say, oh, I can't do that. I can do everything you talk about, but I can't give up the caffeine. A lot of people will say the same thing about going to bed by 10 o'clock until they try it. Like there's nothing left to throw out of the boat, so they finally try it, and it makes a world of difference. So maybe you don't have anything left to throw out of the boat. Give yourself a chance to go to bed by 10 o'clock. The next thing you can do is to limit your exposure to the blue light by using either computer glasses, the orange-yellow type of glasses, or having your screens change as the sun goes down. And this is a must if you use your computer. If you're working at the computer after sunset, it's really important that you have that correction happening, because that blue light is very, very stimulating to your brain, and it will keep you awake, and your melatonin secretion will be off. And the other way that you can increase your melatonin is to start in the morning by getting bright light as soon as you can. And for many people, depending where you live, you get up in the dark and you come home from work in the dark. I know I lived in a dark climate for a long, long time, but get as much sunlight as you can, as early in the day as you can, because that will help to have your hormone of melatonin release at the correct time so that you can be in bed and asleep by 10 p.m. So you want to also be eating on a regular basis. You don't want to go too long without eating unless you are fasting in a way that you are doing it consciously. What happens here is people just forget to eat, or they're just too busy to eat. You have to pay attention. So pay attention to when your eating windows are. Maybe you're someone who likes to eat regimented 3 meals a day. Then do that and just don't miss your meals. You want to give your body the rhythm that it needs. And this may take some experimentation on your part, because we don't all do it the same. And it will also change in different chapters of your life. The way that you ate and slept when you were in your 20s is not how it's going to be when you're in your 50s. Things change. And so you want to experiment and see what kind of a meal schedule works best for you. But make sure that you are eating enough, and so that we're looking here for stabilized blood sugar. And one of the best ways to have stabilized blood sugar, besides eating when you need to, is to also be eating foods that are high in fiber. So make sure that you are eating those whole plant-based foods to keep enough fiber in your system, so your glucose is being released in a stream that your body can handle, that is just right for you. It isn't coming out too fast and making you have sugar highs and then crashes later in the day. So fiber is your friend. I would also like you to make sure that you eliminate intense exercise routines. If you are dealing with this chronic stress that has caused your adrenals to be depleted or tired or fatigued, eliminate the intense exercise for now and opt for things like Tai Chi and Qigong, Hatha yoga, not hot yoga, but Hatha yoga, gentle walking, stretching, flow ropes, whatever feels right to you that is not too intense as to exhaust you more. This is a time that you want to be rebuilding. And of course, I would like you to start a meditation program to reduce your mental and emotional stress. The benefits of implementing a stress management practice that you can grow over time. Even if this starts for you by just sitting by a window and looking out the window for 5 to 10 minutes, just noticing your breath at the same time that you are gently staring out the window. Gently look out the window with also a focus on your breath going in and your breath going out. This would be a beautiful way that is not stressful. It is not causing you more on your to-do list, which we don't want to do when you're trying to heal from something like we are talking about here with our adrenals being tired. You want to be able to do this nicely, like I said, sitting, looking out the window, watching your breath at the same time. And eventually you can grow this practice. Eventually, if you can do the window practice for 5 or 10 minutes, then you can try just sitting in the same spot, same window, and gently close your eyes and see if you can sit there just letting your breath go in and go out as you watch it for 5 to 10 minutes. We need to do these healing practices for not only our mind, not only our anxiety and intrusive thoughts, but we need to do this for our body because the body and mind loop. Both are talking to each other. So we need to keep both healthy and calm. I want you to be patient because as you begin to heal and feel better and more alert and more alive, you might find that you want to get going again in the high-speed life. And I don't want you to do that. Give yourself time, be patient, and let the body take as long as it takes. Just because you feel better one day doesn't mean you drop all the things you did to get there. I want you to keep up these good health, life-giving practices and keep going forward as you feel better. Because once you make them habit, you don't even think about it anymore. So be patient as you come out of it and hold on to the practices as you feel better. I so hope this is helpful for you. And now for today's quote. The time to relax is when you don't have time for it. And that's from Sydney J. Harris. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. Find more information at theanxietycoachespodcast.com.